commentary, and this is a video overview of this knife. And this knife is a knife I got in for review recently, and it is the Zero Tolerance ZT0909. This is a knife that's a collaboration between, let's see if we can get it to focus here. It's a collaboration between Zero Tolerance and Les George. And Les George has been making custom knives for quite a while. He's one of the people that helped popularize mid-techs. He basically made a batch of knives. I think the Talos was the first one. And then it became the VECP. And what he had done was he just batched out a bunch of parts and then he hand-fitted them, which is what a mid-tech is. This knife, the ZT0909, is based on the Talos, which was, I think, based on the FM1, which was his first custom knife. And this is a very, very big knife for me. This is the biggest knife I've ever reviewed. Maybe the Eraser was bigger, but just so you have a point of comparison. Like, these knives are not the same size. You really can't tell. But the ZT is significantly bigger. This has almost a 4-inch blade. It's a 3.75 inch, and this is a 4.4 inch blade. The place where you get the big difference is the weight. This knife weighs 7.5 ounces, so it weighs more than twice as much as the paramilitary 2. And a lot of the weight comes in the form of the blade stock. The blade stock is massively thick. Let's see if we can do this. Yeah, this is just a massively thick blade. And then the other place where the weight difference comes is it comes in the terms of the liners. These liners, according to the ZT literature, are from the 0350, which was a liner lock. But the liners were so thick that it's probably not that much different than a frame lock. And if you look here, you can see, like, there's the locking liner for the paramilitary, and then there's the locking liner for the ZT0909. It's just a massive, massive knife. The flipping action is provided by KVT bearings, so they're caged bearing washers, and the blade steel is S35VN. And as you can see, there's some real purposeful jimping up here. There's a nice place for your finger to index. And then, something that I don't find on a whole lot of folding knives, there's a pretty good parrot's beak here for your hand to fit in. And, I have medium-sized hands, and this knife just fits my hand really, really nice. It's very heavy and very thick. There is a little bit of a hot spot right here, where the pocket clip and these two raised points. So where the pocket clip, just before it dips in and just after it dips out, it hits my hand, and it does create a little bit of a hot spot. But it's not a big deal. I mean, it's a folder. You're not going to be using this all day like you would a fixed blade. A couple other interesting things. They decided to go with a bolt washer, which I've never seen before. And it does give it that like beefy look and feel. The one thing that I'm not super thrilled about is that the washer stands proud of the handles. And so I haven't caught anything on it yet, but it's just weird. I don't like just sink that in. I guess they didn't want to. They wanted to kind of leave it like a rough industrial look. But the pocket clip is the standard over-the-top pocket clip from Kai USA. It's the one that you find on the Cryo, and I find this pocket clip to be quite excellent. It's not terribly fancy, but this is one of the mid-priced or less expensive ZTs. And this knife here is running about $225, which is not all that much money for the MSRP, so you'll probably find it for around $170. There is a little bit of machining here in the handle. There's a scoop here, and a scoop here, and they are smooth, whereas this the plateau of the G10 is actually very grippy. It's not quite as shreddy as the G10 on the cold steel knives. It's right in leagues with the G10 on the paramilitary too. I found that this knife is a very good flipper. Although Justin Laffer makes a point about really big knives being flippers, and there is something to be said with there's just a lot of weight in the blade, And when it's riding on caged bearings, it can come down pretty fast on your finger. I think if this knife was any bigger, if it was like a 4.25 inch blade, I would not want it to be a flipper. And this is right at the limit of what I'm comfortable with in terms of flipping action. It's just very, very heavy. The flipper tab is covered in jimping, but fortunately the jimping's not that bad at all. It just is enough for your finger to catch it, and you can pop it open pretty thoughtlessly and definitely without any wrist action. Overall, I like this knife. It's a very, very big knife. It's bigger than I would normally carry, but the handle is really well shaped. It's nicely done. And other than the hot spots from the pocket clip, which you're going to find in basically any folder, it's one of the better handles out there. It does give the knife a very distinctive shape. It kind of reminds me of like a canoe. You know, see that? Like that's the prow of the canoe. But other than that, there's not a whole lot else to say about this knife. It's a big, beefy knife, flat grind. I like this swedge up here. It gives you a little bit of a piercing tip, which is hard to say on a knife that has, you know, this thick a blade stock. But if you're in the market for a big, beefy knife, if you miss the beast blades of ZT as opposed to things like the 450, then the 909 is going to hit you right where you like it, because this is a big, beastly knife. Look forward to a review. I think the review will come out on All Outdoor. And thanks to Knife Art for sending me this for review.